ask at this time, Mr. Smith, will you do the invocation of the pledge of allegiance?
Father, thank you for the day that's been given. Supervisors and put in administration, our citizens that are here, serve vacancies. Thank you for all of this. That you be with us in this meeting today. In the name of I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda to allow public comment.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. So we're moving public comment to right now. And it's going to be the same as any public comment. State your name, address, and we start the timer. 3 minutes. We're not allowed to talk to y'all during that 3 minutes, so it's your 3 minutes to say whatever you want to say. What you would.
I don't know what you're going to say. I don't mind my handwriting.
Okay, first citizen is Ralph Norris.
What happens when you sign first?
Good afternoon, I'm Ralph Norris. I'm from White Top, Virginia. And today I'm speaking on behalf of the EMS Commission. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for the opportunity to speak today concerning the emergency operations budget. I am here to speak on behalf of the Grayson County Emergency Commission about the current funding and representation that each fire and rescue agency receives. The Emergency Services Commission is comprised of representatives from each fire and rescue agency within Grayson County. At our most recent business meeting, all present voting agencies agreed we needed to voice our displeasure to the Board of Supervisors about the current funding to the agencies and representation we have as a commission. Our current direct funding from the county is through compensable reimbursement, which is calculated by the number of 911 calls answered by each agency. The rate for compensable reimbursement is based on funds given to Galax Fire and Galax Grayson EMS for the fiscal year 23 budget. This model was established in fiscal year 2023 after the commission raised concerns about unequal funding to Galax Fire and Galax Grayson EMS compared to all other Grayson County fire and rescue agencies. Since the establishment of this model in 2023, the compensable reimbursement for Grayson County fire and rescue agencies has not increased. Yet funding for Galax Fire and Galax Grayson EMS has increased tremendously. In fiscal year 23, Galax Grayson EMS budget request was $150,000. And now they are requesting $423,575 for fiscal year 26. This is a 182% increase to Galax Grayson EMS since fiscal year 2023, with no increase in direct funding to Grayson County rescue squads. In fiscal year 23, Galax Fire budget request was $24,000, and for fiscal year 26, they are requesting $36,720. This is a 53% increase to Galax Fire since fiscal year 23. But again, no increase in direct funding to Grayson County fire departments. We asked the question, how is it fair to fund one small area of Grayson County at a higher rate than other larger areas, and why all Grayson County fire departments and rescue squads must get their direct funding amount based on Galax agencies. As the budget has previously shown, there seems to be no cap to the funding Grayson County Board of Supervisors is willing to give. Galax-based agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Next is Sheriff Vaughn.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak today. I'll start out with some good news. Supervisor Tomlinson and I had the privilege of attending emergency services graduation for EMTs over at Baywood Rescue Squad recently. They graduated 7 EMTs. 4 of those are actually deputies that work at the sheriff's office. So they're now trained. They'll be carrying medical equipment with them to be able to help rescue squads and help emergency services answer calls while they're out on patrol. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So now we have 4 of them on staff. So we'll be able to help the rescue squads more than we have. We always go and help, but it's good to have the training when you get there. So we'll have that. I want to recognize Megan Barnes. She was the instructor. She's a county employee. She works for Grayson County Emergency Services. She did an excellent job teaching the class and to give the students the skills that they need. Move on to our budget request. If you recall, we requested $3,446,000 to keep the staff that we have now. We have reduced 1 school resource officer position. But if we reduce to the advertised budget of $3,148,000, that's going to cost us 2 positions. And it's going to be patrol positions, and it's going to hurt. It's going to create an officer safety issue throughout the county. We're down 1 deputy right now that's out on medical leave, so we've only got 11 out on patrol. And that's two teams that work 12-hour shifts. I just spoke with Chief Cooper over at Galax this afternoon. They had 8.2 square miles, and they had 20 officers in patrol. We've got 450 square miles, and we're trying to do it with 11. It's an officer safety issue, and it's not fair to our citizens, and it's not fair to the citizens of the west end of Grayson County, because the majority of our population is on the east end of the county. That's where most of our calls are at. If we've just got 2 deputies working, and they're responding to a domestic at Freeze, and there's a call on the west end, that we have to call either Washington County, Smith County, or the state police to help with those calls. And, you know, we have 15,285 citizens, but that does not account for all the visitors we have to the New River, Grayson Highland State Park, and other areas of the county. So I'm asking you to consider putting that $150,000 back into our budget so we could hire those 2 positions. They are vacant right now. Our staff has worked hard on grants throughout the years. The past boards throughout the years have worked hard providing the funding to get us to where we're at now. According to the needs assessment done 3 years ago, we should have 18 in patrol. But if I could get to 14, if we can get the one that's on medical leave back and get the 2 additional positions, we'll have 2 shifts of 7 and 7. That would give us 3 on day shift and 4 on night shift. I feel a whole lot better about that. So I would appreciate your consideration and ask you to consider the 4% increase on the levy. I did a little math today with the treasurer. You own a $200,000 home in Grayson County, that equates to about $83 a year. So that's $7 a month.
Thank you, Sheriff.
If you need to blame somebody for a tax increase, blame me, because that's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
All right, final work session for FY 25-26 budget.
Anybody else?
That's it.
Anybody else want to speak? Okay, all right, just make sure. So,
Mr. Boyd, the floor here.
okay, let's start this off. I think you did most of the hard work on this. I'll fill in if I need to. Just to level set, this is our final work session from the budget. Our next board supervisor meeting will be, you'll have to vote on the budget. This meeting, the only budget we have to approve is the school budget. And one of the problems we kind of run into with the school budget is we're approving the school budget now. They don't get their final numbers until another month or so, and it causes some amendments to the budget. But we do have to approve the budget this session. And as a reminder, the proposed budget for the school does not, the RLE went up, but we did not put money above RLE in the school budget this year. I guess this last Thursday, the commission had a meeting, and there was quite a bit of discussion on EMS. Got several calls on it, so we put up the EMS discussion.
I've been asking our EMS staff for data, for a while. We hadn't gotten the data I was fidelity on the data that I wanted to look at to kind of zero in on our budget for EMS. Nikki worked on it this week, and she got us some, I think, preliminary numbers that we can take a look at from an EMS, for EMS discussion. We need to determine tax rates, general fund balanced budget, and again, to approve the school budget this session.
Okay, the notable increases in the budget, we're gonna go over again. Open up the public comment period. 5 minutes.
Kelly, I told you no comment. Riley, they just amended the agenda. If you want to comment, right now is your time to comment. School president, you really is.
Lost. Glad I made it in time.
Mr. Whitmore, we changed it to just public comments. It's 3 minutes.
Oh, I'll keep it
It's
short.
not 3 hours.
Okay, well, I was big for 3 hours anyway. This is one of your meetings, Steve.
Hang on just a second. State your name and address, and then
Kelly Wilmore, 318 Deerhaven Lane, along with PO Box 888 for the school. And that would be, you don't need to put 3 minutes, I'm not gonna be that long. What schools would propose is, of course, anything above LRA we would appreciate. We are looking at a couple of different things. One, of course, would be to add some weapons detectors to the schools. We do have a grant to get half of 2 of those. We put in for 9,000, and actually they've come back as 18,000. So we would appreciate anything you guys could do as far as that. Also, the biggest issue we're dealing with right now is our buses. We've got a couple of buses that have come off the road, and I've been told there's probably going to be about 5 buses total within the next several months. So, we've talked about the money we have in there. If we can get a hold of it, I think y'all have some money in there for us this year in that CIP. We'd like to be able to have that put in the CIP so we can access a couple buses. And also, if you are going to, whatever you're going to do with your 4 cents or 3 cents or 2 cents, whatever you guys come up with tonight, if there would be a possibility, if you've got enough revenue out of that 4 cents, if one of those cents could go to the renovation we talked about at Independence Elementary School, we would be to add those wings, to add a wing on. It would be greatly appreciated. Any way you can help us out with that, because we're going to have to do something quickly with Independence Elementary School. It's not just going to sit there. I mean, these problems are going to fester. Those trailers are not going to get better. It's not going to get any better, and it's no use to go buy another trailer. That's stupid. So my thought is, if we could use a cent towards that, we would appreciate the opportunity to make sure it's spent very well. If not, like I said, the money we could use that you guys have got for buses would be greatly appreciated. Any above LRE towards the weapons systems for the schools, or any buses, if you can buy us a bus, they're running about 138,000 a piece right now. Anything you've got extra with your revenue, we would appreciate the opportunity if you guys could help us out. That's all I have. Thank you. Appreciate it.
okay, at this point, we'll go back to the priorities.
Okay, notable increases in the budget this year. The state recommended a 1.5% bonus. It looks like this thing is catching up with all my clicking. 1.5% bonus, which costs about $187,000 countywide. 3% salary increase, which costs the county $260,000. Workers' comp has been increasing and will continue to increase. That was about $18,000. Our health insurance costs have continued to escalate. We are now running at about $130,000 increase over last year. And our required local effort for the school system increased by $327,000 this year. It's a total of $922,000. Okay. As Mr. Boyer stated, after the commission meeting, he asked me to put together some information that we are funding locally towards the local rescue squads. Fire was not included in this at the time because it seemed like the focus was EMS. So I've basically gone back in the numbers and all the information that we have in the financial records. and extrapolated out how much we are supporting, not only Grayson County Emergency Services, but Galex Grayson EMS, Galex Fire, and local support for the rescue squads themselves, okay? Basically did about a 6-year to see what kind of change that has happened over the years, because when you look back at 2021, actual, for example, on the local support for rescue was $21,000. I think that's important to see how far, I believe, as a finance director, we've come in this 6-year period. So, and I knew that Grayson County Emergency Services was really impacting our budget. Those 3 last rows are included in that top number, okay? So, as you can see, Grayson County Emergency Services has grown in expense by about $1.8 million. So 221% increase over that 6-year period. Our Galex Grayson Emergency Services budget in 2021 was $132,000. The budget request this year was for $423,575, which is a 218% increase. Galex Fire has been mentioned, and that has gone from $24,000 to $30,000 in that 6-year period, which is about a 25% increase. And when I looked at the local support for our local agencies, it's gone from $21,000 to $334,000, which is a 1,492% increase.
Does that include the apparatuses?
No,
Okay,
this does not. This is
This is
compensable
direct.
reimbursements.
direct payment to the
Yes.
agencies?
Direct payments to the agency minus the global expenses. Is that, are you all familiar with that, global expenses? Which is like, there's certain things that we're like buying supplies now for the volunteer squads and supplying them with their supplies and basically deducting it from those payments. There's also additional funding that Grayson County provides for local fire and rescue, but isn't in those local support numbers that you see in the Grayson County Emergency Services budget. For example, we are insuring all their vehicles and equipment. However, they're not owned by the county. Each squad owns their equipment and vehicles with the exception of one ambulance that we bought from Mount Rogers. That's the only one that we owned. And the cost of that is $185,000. We also provide workers' comp insurance for the entire roster of volunteers. Last roster I had was about 156 fire, 67 EMS, and 26 support positions for the amount of $45,457. We do purchase ambulances and fire apparatus, and I think even last year, instead of purchasing the fire apparatus, we basically gave the squad $75,000. But, so in that, I imagine it's going to continue. And we provide also a supplemental accident and sickness policy for the entire roster as well. At a minimal cost, it's $16,000, but it's a great policy. I was surprised it was that inexpensive. So, when you look at when you look at the support by agency, we have every rescue squad listed. Again, I didn't include fire, and I just want to note that in Freeze, Mount Rogers, and Troutdale, your fire numbers have been taken out of those numbers. This is just the EMS. The total support for Baywood was $83,000 last year. And this goes back to the calculation that was approved by the commission back in 23. Independence Rescue Squad, it was $207,000. Elk Creek, $66,000. Now, Rugby may be a little high, and it's because there is a striker contract that I just found out this morning. It is listed in Rugby's name, but it's not all Rugby. It's a county-wide contract, so that has to be divvied out. So there's about $40,000 in Rugby's numbers that has to kind of pan out over all 7 of the rescue squads. So I'd say Rugby is closer to 60. rescue, it's $100,000, Mount Rogers $40,000, fire and rescue is about $50,000. When you look at those numbers, the EMS local support totals up to about $879,000 from Grayson County.
You know, I would say that one other data point that we didn't put in was the money that got donated to by Wellspring. We did certainly focus on the rescue volunteer agencies, fire and rescue agencies, and that was $257,000 that we put into those options.
Okay, the reductions that are included in the budget that is in front of you for FY '26. The operational support for the airport was eliminated. $36,600. Payments to Mount Rogers CSB was also eliminated for the amount of $213,000. CIP for the school, $1.98 million was eliminated, and the above RLE for facilities was eliminated, $384,000. 3 county positions were eliminated in the budget for a reduction of $300,000, and 2 county funded positions in the sheriff's department for $145,000. So from our budget request, we eliminated roughly $3 million. The budget right now that's in the system is balanced with all of these reductions and a tax rate increase of 4 cents. And we are open for comments, suggestions, questions.
So with that information of total support, I'm still not quite clear, and I mean, I'm here to ask the dumb questions because nobody else wants to, but I'm still unclear as to what, the numbers that we have for our support to them, itemized, like exactly what all is covered in that, because when
You're
you
talking about our
speak
emergency
to-
services
yes.
agencies?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because when you speak to these squads, the most eye-opening thing to me at the commission meeting, I knew, Steve has repeated to us over and over, and he's right, emergency services, it's coming, it's gonna be a problem, we know this. So when I actually heard 4 of the squads say that because of their financial situation, I mean, let alone the lack of volunteers and staff, but because of their financial situation, 4 of them would be closed in 2 years and 5 in 5 years. I don't understand if our support has gone up by what percentage? Why are they not feeling that dramatic increase in financial support? It's like they say it's not, they don't feel it, they don't see it. And I don't know how to answer their questions. None of the numbers I have seen from anything have agreed.
I don't think that's a dumb question, because
Okay.
I have the same question.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
I don't know what you mean when you say none of the numbers have agreed, and I don't know what numbers you're talking about.
So, we hear numbers from individual squads, we hear numbers from our Grayson County Emergency Services, and then we have numbers from Galax Grace, we have numbers from the county office, and none of them have been the same. They might be close, or depending on how you look at the percentages, I can see how you would get, Ralph said that there was a 50% increase in their, from request to request. But for budget to budget, it was 30. That's what you told me, it was 30.
Yeah.
And then we've also heard 130% thrown around. So I'm not seeing the continuity, and it's hard to validate spending, for me, I'm just personally saying, it's hard to validate spending the $430,000 without having some hard, I've been asking, and I know this has been short notice, so that's part of the reason that I'm sure the reports just haven't come out, but I wanted to see personally, like an annual report from 2024 of, how much are we depending on Galax Grayson? Is it absolutely pivotal? Are they covering, they cover geographically, I think it's about 2% of the county, but that's the biggest populated part of our county. I know they're first due for Fairview and very appreciative for that. But I just, you hear things word of mouth that their call volume in the county has gone down. Is that a direct reflection of, entities like Baywood and other squads that have increased their response? And so, you can't both take the call. So if the direct reflection of Galax Grayson decrease in calls is because our volunteer squads are responding to more, those are just questions I've had that nobody has been able to answer. And I have a hard time. This is just so important. I have a really hard time committing to something without really feeling the validation.
Well,
Let me take,
Can I just
yeah,
do one? I'm not on the board, so I don't want to, these two are on the board. I did go to just trying to run some data about the call volume decrease number in some of the budget that you chose. Their budget actually went down from fiscal year 24 to 25 from 2.3 to 2.1. The revenue decreased, so the locality percentages increased. Now, these two can probably talk a lot more on why that took place, the problems with transports in Carroll County not responding. And I think that's a long, drawn-out conversation. I'm not sure that's necessary today. But I did just try to get some data from the 911 call center. And it appears to me, now this started last week, and I'm not sure what data you're looking for. So if I'm giving
Well,
you
the
wrong,
only thing I've seen was April.
if I'm giving you wrong data, then you'll have to tell me what data.
I've seen April, if that's what you got.
So I looked at last year, how many calls they went out in Grayson County, 653 calls, 134 of those were in Baywood. This is not from GGEMS, this is from 911. And so they went to 206 calls in Fleas.
This is GGEMS you're talking about?
This is GGEMS. And so the call volume decreased. And I said, okay, well, was there a decrease? So the only thing I could do was take the first 1, 2, 3, 4 months, 4 months, and compare them to last year's 4 months. That's where we're at right now. And so there's an increase of 43 calls in Grayson County in that 4-month period. So I don't know what that, if somebody has a data point to share.
I wrote a note from, I believe it was actually a closed session.
Yeah.
That Nick reported to us that the number of calls had actually decreased. I just missed it.
I think
I had
the
it written
transports.
I knew the transport was dramatic.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that was one reason why the transport thing played in, because right here's the sheet, and year over year, transports are down 27%, which is 192 calls, but the 911 calls are up 26%, which is 586 calls. So
Into Grayson County or just as a whole?
that's as a total, and
So,
in the agreement with Galax Grayson, that's kind of been a thing of a lot of discussion too. And what I've been told, what I've always understood is that's a legal agreement, because back in, I think it was 2009, the mayor of Galax and the chairman of the board of supervisors both signed that agreement. So as you know, we can obligate the county to debt agreements, etc. So that's a legally binding document. I asked Steve to talk with Mr. Durbin. I don't know if he has
I
yet.
sent it to Steve. I said, can you respond to this? He didn't respond for me, but I did send it. I believe that was Friday. You called me or something like that.
So I'm not an attorney, but everything I've heard, that seems like a legally binding agreement. And whenever the payment structure was set up, I don't know if that was done then, because the calls ran in Galax. Galax residents, last I checked, was about 63%, and Grayson County is about 37%.
63.
That was my understanding as of last year, earlier this year maybe, and we're paying 49% of the budget, and they're paying 51%. So there's a discrepancy there.
Yeah.
But that's just, whenever that agreement was made, that's how it was set up. I'm not sure what you got.
Look, there's 3 different calls in that. So
Yeah,
there's 3 different calls in this. I pulled
That
this.
is the whole.
Yeah. Mitch just told me about this, but I just pulled it so I could look at it. The shared costs are 50-50 of the salaries. And I'll look all of it. I don't know what all of it is, but it's this long. What is it? Building. Usage costs are 66-34, 66 to Galax, 34 to us. And vehicle leases are 55-45. I think this agreement was worked out. I don't know, Mitch.
Probably 5 years ago.
No, more than that, I think. This is
Well, the latest.
Oh, the latest agreement. Okay. So 5 years ago, this agreement for shared costs was worked out. And so,
Actually, yeah,
I think
5 years ago puts us 2020, it would have been the same 8 years.
Time flies.
You're exactly right.
for those of you who break down the costs associated with those.
So if, I know just the request for us, but is there total request basically 423?
No, from last year?
No, for this year,
Oh, yeah,
423, Galax Grayson, is that it?
Yes.
yes.
Okay,
I don't understand the 423.
What, yeah, what is it?
423,000?
Yes.
Theirs
that
would be
what you're
just a
asking?
little bit, 2% higher than ours would that.
Okay, so it's
Oh,
So it's 51.49.
49, okay, I
Oh,
got you, 49.
oh,
Okay,
Yeah.
oh,
I, we were not understanding what you meant.
There's a little bit more.
There's a little bit more. but-
Okay, so if we're paying because we are paying our volunteer squads compensatory pay, which is basically, correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically commission, right? On
It's the
call.
same rate as the Galax Grayson.
Right,
Funding was based off the same rate that Galax Grayson was being paid
Back in
2 years ago
Yeah.
per call.
so would it be fair to say, because we had discussed just renegotiating their agreement, I think that was actually your recommendation, was to renegotiate.
Talk about that.
And so could it be a fluid, compensatory commission, you know what I'm trying to say. Could we do that with Galax Grayson to where, if they're blowing it out of the water one year and responding to call after call after call to us, we pay them accordingly. Instead of this 5149 agreement, when the western end of our county is basically,
But the
Feeling
usage
very
costs are not
under-
51.49, it's 66.34. I don't think you're gonna have Galax 66.34.
for uses,
Usage,
said
usage
6336 was,
66.34 is the usage cost.
They're not going to agree to pay our fixed costs.
Yeah, that's
Our
what,
fixed costs.
that's what adds up so much, I guess, is the salaries and the vehicles.
Well, there's a lot of talk like this is some kind of contractual agreement. I mean, we own this, right? This is ours. It's not like it's Galax's and we're getting our water supply from them.
Exactly.
You know, one, and the other thing everybody should understand is we have shared services. They struck us a check every year for $500,000 for shared services directly affect what the sheriff does. Affects our courts, affects everything. So I guess from my perspective, we look at both of these, his shop, that shop as a, kind of a regional asset. We don't look at it as a Galax asset. We look at it as a regional asset that serves the citizens kind of across the board. So
Well, I want to speak to the 1,500% increase in local agencies was something we did a couple of years ago to try to make this equitable. And we wanted to put our money toward our volunteer agencies because we depend on them. And if we don't have our volunteer agencies, we're going to go to a completely fully paid. We're going to agencies just like we are with GGMs. And that's the thing, that the county owns that building, owns all the equipment. It has fixed costs associated with it. And our agencies still own all of their own property. So a couple of years ago, we had this same discussion about why can't we support our volunteers more? And I think this whole board feels like, absolutely, let's support our volunteers until it's not a viable option. But right now, Grayson Galax is an agreement that we have with Galax, and they're covering the 42% or 32% of the calls that Baywood doesn't get. And they're covering and it may be 2% of the county, but it's probably 20% of our population that they're covering. So when you can make a percentage look like however you want
yes, you
to.
can.
But if we need to support the volunteer agencies more, I'm all on board. But unless we can have Steve Durbin talk to us about what we can do with that contract and renegotiate it, we're hung in Grayson Galax emergency services.
To me, that's just like the solid waste authority or the regional jail or all that. Wildwood, Reseda, it's just like that was made how many ever years ago? That agreement was made. And we're in it. We're owners of it, so we've got to deal with that. We've got to do that now. So it's just one of those things. In my understanding.
Did you have a chance to discuss or could you explain to me with Galax Grace, and I mentioned it to Steve, but I don't think I had a chance to talk to you. One of the questions that was raised by one of the fire chiefs at the commission meeting, which was a very valid question, and he's a business owner, so I know where he's coming from. So when they, did they lose transports, or did they choose to stop doing transports?
Chose to not do Carroll County transports
Okay.
because the keeping staff and keeping, and this increase of the 586 year-to-date increase of 911s to cover, the trucks just weren't available and having a hard time keeping employees. And so they were the options were they were requesting another truck 24 hours, which is going to drive up the cost, or the shutting out the Carroll County transports. Now Grace and Galax, all others, they pay. And you know, we're still seeing how that's going to impact the budget, but it's actually the cost has went down substantially, and I think long term it's not going to be. It's going to help a lot because the mileage that the vehicles.
So that's exactly where I was going with it. It should, and it wasn't reflected in their numbers. They had the exact same expenditures. And I guess it's just they hadn't had a chance to really think through that and look back to see what they spent on transports. But their revenue was dramatically less because of the loss of transports, which they chose to stop doing transports. But their expenditures were exactly the same, almost dollar for dollar, and that just didn't make sense to.
I was thinking that was them, but.
Well, it might have been, but
But
it was
some
still
of it too-
2.7 or something.
Sure went down.
It went down, but it was marginal. It was like 2.7, I think, is what you told us. And it should have been fuel, equipment, staff hours, all of those things should factor into that. So you're saying that they have factored that in
They
now?
cut out shit.
So
how many
now we're
trucks
down
do they
to
have?
5.
They did have two 24s and a 12 whenever they could staff it. But now it's just the 2 24s. They cut out the 12-hour truck.
They have two that don't run. They have 3.
Oh, I mean total trucks. Okay, I think there's 5
There's 5
trucks.
trucks.
And one of them has about 300 and some thousand miles.
6,000.
Yeah.
So, but at any given time, 2 units that are staffed. and
Yeah.
ready to-
There's 2 staff 24/7.
So the thinking behind the cut the Carroll transports out is that if they're tied up on transports, they're not available to respond to the calls.
And there's not a desire from
People
the
don't want
employees to do
transports.
transfers. That's, I mean, that's a,
That's a
Carol, the problem was, one of the problems was, we started having a discussion with the hospital. GGMs would be headed to do a transport for Carol. Carol would be at the hospital, not want to transport their own people back to their own county. So I think they were doing 80 plus transports a month at the time. They just didn't feel like they could sustain that number of transports. You've got this competition now where GGMs financially is competing with Carroll, who has more money. Carroll's competing with Pulaski, Bradford for employees. You have a small labor pool, and it's getting to be a financial competition. And I can tell you from the smallest county with the smallest budget, if we try to compete with our neighbors to the left of us, we're going to be.
but
It's going to be expensive.
the additional transport helps that financial situation
It does.
of GGM's
It does.
a lot.
We saw that in the revenue
Sure,
loss.
100%. But I think I think what they articulated to me was they were losing employees at a rapid rate.
Because nobody wants to do it.
Nobody wants to only do transports. They want to do 911. And it's hard enough to get people to do.
And that 600 call increase in 911s, it's like, we can't cover them.
What we lost, and just in the meeting too, what we lost in transport, we gained in 911.
Yeah.
It's still.
Well, actually, it's more calls because we lost, over year to date, we lost 192 transports and picked up 586 911 calls.
What's their typical 911 call volume for?
Year to date, 3,600. Well, that's current year. Last year was 3,467 calls. This year to date, it's already 3,602. So it's already up 4%. And then we've still got, I guess, all of June, and this was as of May 1st. So all of May and all of June.
Do you know from the commission what typically our squads get back on their billing, like what, because GGM's, Justin said they get about 75%. And they expect about $400 on average per.
I don't know that some of these guys may be able to talk a little better, but I know it's highly dependent on what kind of insurance you have, et cetera.
Right, insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. I was just wondering if,
And
part of the squad's problem is that they are.
right? I mean,
Galaxy Racing doesn't, I think all the volunteer squads have a billing agency also.
I think you can't actually term it hard billing anymore, but they hard bill, but the way Justin explained it is they rarely send someone to collections unless it's a real issue, but as long as someone is paying. But it does sound like, and being the entity they are, it makes sense that they would have more revenue coming in from their billing process versus the squads. So maybe, is that something that the squads could change? I know that's a stupid question. They can't. I just heard about a woman they went to see that was in a diabetic coma, and she's basically just living from 911 call to 911 call because she can't afford any supplies. So.
Yeah. The other option, I don't know if it would say, if it would make any more money, but I know they do their billing in-house. I don't know if there's any possibility for that. I have no idea.
It sounds like they
Well,
just
they're
really
gonna-
don't get any.
They're gonna likely lose income if they do go through a third party.
They will.
Yeah, that's what I'm
They'll
saying
lose a
on
big chunk.
volunteer squads, they do that. I'm not sure if it would be worth, and everybody would agree with doing that, if it would be an increase or not. I just don't know.
This is gonna be a major topic every year
Every year.
until we come up with a broader plan of how to handle emergency services in Grayson County. Because we essentially we're on the shoulders of volunteers and paying the service at the same time. And it's a difficult thing for us to figure out.
Well, I think that, from an EMS standpoint, Ralph, is it only the West End now that's not paying EMS volunteers? Everybody else having to pay just to get volunteers there?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I
Rugby,
understood too.
Mount Rogers and Courtdale are still strictly volunteer.
Yeah, I think everybody else is having to pay at this point, which means we're paying for the service either way. We're paying.
Well, the other agencies are also paid and as well as volunteer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So you're having my first visit, I just went to G-Gems the other day because of all this. And so I was talking to a young lady who was there, and I said, tell me about your work. And she said, well, I work here 24 hours on and 3 days off. I go, well, what are you doing those days off? She goes, I go to Elk Creek and I get paid over there. They pay me to work over there as an EMS provider. And so we're paying for it, except for probably on the West End at this point.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I have brought this up before, and I think it might be something that you guys could look into and maybe help this situation. I know you don't want to raise taxes, and you don't want to cause your constituents to be mad at you because of raising taxes and stuff. But if, like North Carolina, they have fire tax. Each individual homeowner pays a certain percentage of fire tax to the county. And if you would do that and earmark this money specifically for fire and EMS and nothing else, I think you would alleviate this problem, and every homeowner that is that wanting fire and rescue wouldn't care to give 2 or 3 cents on their taxes if they knew that that's where the money was going to. And then that way the fire and the EMS could buy new equipment, pay for their personnel that they've got hired, and do the things that needs to be done, and not be a burden on this committee here, and just let everybody in the county take care of the burden of this particular duties that's being done by volunteers and help. We run our calls, we keep the trucks all up, we raise money to buy diesel fuel and pay the light bills and all this and that and the other. Plus, we use the money that you guys give us to, pay salaries and the EMS that's working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week at our station. So why not put this burden on everybody in the county instead of just a few?
Thank you. Brandon, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yes,
How's the recruiting of volunteers going? And that's for anybody who wants to answer this question. And one of the concerns that we have is that, not trying to insult anybody here, but the average age of our volunteers, they're older. And are we getting young folks volunteering?
yes, sir. At our station, we've just got five new younger folks just joined, and 2 of them just went through, or 4 of them went through firefighter 1 class and just
And that
passed.
firefighter 1 class they have to take are they paying for it? Is the county helping with that? Or
We pay for it as agency.
so it could be county funds that you're using for that.
It could be.
Yeah, okay.
Then the EMT class that I was just speaking of, we've had some that went through it and then passed it and are waiting. So all the agencies in the county here have had EMTs and firefighter 1s just going through class and finishing up. And then most of they have to travel to do it. So we furnish them a vehicle and the gas for them to go do this, and help pay for it and everything. But, if you look around, maybe just look at the county over, Allegheny. It's a North Carolina county, and they do this fire tax thing, and each individual fire department, I think, from what I've been told, their revenue for a year is in the $270,000 to $300,000 each. So, you can take that kind of budget, buy the equipment, and do all the stuff. To outfit one firefighter with a set of boots, pants, coat, gloves, no max hood, helmet, and an air pack, it's about $13,000 per person. That's just for one man.
Do you, in this conversation that we're having about this, do you think we have a chance to put some resources towards recruitment and retention? And what's the time span do you think we have before we lose our volunteer system?
Well, that's, in my opinion, that's up to each other individual agency as to how they recruit and retain their personnel and try to make it fun for them. And it's a job, and it's a serious job that we undertake. But at the same time, if they have to, most younger people right now, it's got families, they're working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And what time do they have left during them 3 jobs to volunteer? If they've got a few minutes and they can, and they do, and we appreciate it. But can we ask them to do it every day, day in and day out, without some help,
And Ralph, do you think it's the same White Top on retention and recruitment?
It's a lot harder for us up there. I mean, when you look at it statistically, it's 30 to 45 minutes to the closest small town for us. We've tried everything we can think of. And I finally got a 15-year-old. Now I've been in this business for 15 years. And that's the first 15-year-old that's clean that would actually meet requirements, federal requirements to be on the department. And, like Randy said, it's minimum $13,000 to outfit these guys. It's hard to get these people. No one's got the time. I mean, you just said you went to get electrician, the girl leaves up there and goes to Elk Creek and goes somewhere else. You gotta make ends meet, and it's hard.
This is kind of directed toward Ralph. I'm from Randy's end, down that way, and what I see, just being, observing kind of what's the move or the population in your end of the county is older people moving in to retire And so I don't, we've kind of worried about this mass exodus of our youth from our county anyway. We've been trying to fix. You see that as a stumbling block too?
It is, I mean,
That's fewer volunteers and more need. The older your population is, the more need there is.
The West End's about 2 or 3 people short of not running any calls. I can tell you that.
and that's been brought up multiple times. We are at the verge of the rescue squad not running.
And another big issue is your volunteer agencies can't
Can you
compete.
stand up, please?
Your volunteer agencies can't compete with the state agencies. We can't compete with Galaxy Racing or Carroll Fire and Rescue on paid staff.
Well, I can assure you that we don't want to go to a paid system. We want to give the volunteers what they need
I'm
to
sorry,
keep
even as
this
a
down the
volunteer,
road as long as we can.
right? But even as a volunteer agency, we can't out of our pocket compete with Carroll Fire and Rescue and Galaxy Racing's paid staff. We can't do it. Which is why we can't pull them.
Nikki?
Can I ask you a question? At the Emergency Services Commission meetings, do you all talk about the compensable reimbursements?
We have.
We have in the
And
past.
was there a discussion about asking for more in the compensable reimbursements?
We hadn't because of what she said about them, basing it on what Galax Grayson and Galax Fire. And I don't think until this budget time hadn't been increased. So if you increase theirs, are you going to increase what we get also?
It was talked about, but very late.
Okay.
But
Because we didn't get a funding request for increase in the compensable reimbursements.
Right.
Well, you would need to go to your chair about that.
but
I don't,
That should have come through the emergency services
it's in the
coordinator.
emergency services budget.
I think that, I remember, well, Paul's not here. We brought it up at one point in time, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of an additional $1.2 million
For this year?
for this year.
But he came in less.
That's where he presented to us without a handout.
That was the two, he was asking for that in addition to 2 positions?
That
Or that
was-
was included in?
I think
He was
He
asking,
did not include that in his budget request.
he was asking for another paid position along with like a secretary or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. He didn't ask for it.
But he said if you go to the,
He said that is not an issue.
I think he said if you go to that rate of compensable reimbursement, it could be additional like $1.2 million.
That would be spread out.
Amongst the 7.
All the
There's 9.
13.
Oh, if you include fire, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys.
But
It's
there's
13.
a long way between 334,000 and 1.1 million.
Yeah,
Well, additional 1.1 million, that would be like 1.5. So,
I guess what I want to ask everybody is, are we going down the path of doing completely paid services, or is there a chance to keep our volunteer robust?
so
Because either way, we want to have somebody show up when our parents fall or have a heart attack.
I really wish there was someone here from the Baywood squad because this was
Nelson-
their,
Nelson.
Nelson, there you are, come here. So can you tell them the discussion? We had a wonderful meeting at the Baywood squad meeting, and it was focused on exactly what Brantley's talking about. So we may not really be able to tell any kind of forecast until after, what was it, September? Could you tell them kind of what they were, and Justin Hines was there, who is now a resident of Old Town, but a member of Ural's squad, so.
Well, basically what we did was we were just trying to get the community involved. We had several members there. We're getting a few young members. That should help our Colorado. We should already have that son. And we're just trying to get everybody more involved in being volunteers, helping us, as well as trying to help, the community. They're community-based people, what they are. They're not fire, they're not rescue, they're community-based people. Just your everyday person out there on the street. They're concerned about us. And they asked me, and I don't know what to tell them. I mean, right now, we're paying people out of our pocket every day, just so we can help our community. It's not the glory or anything like that. We've always done it as long as we've been in existence. And that's what we want to continue. If we could get enough volunteers to do it, we wouldn't pay them. But volunteers, as well as everybody else knows, is by the wayside because of what Randy said. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. A lot of people that's moving in the community, like you said, they don't know us from Adam. They're not going to go dumping money in this when they might spend 2 months out of the year here. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. That's what we were trying to do. As much as anything was just trying to get the community more involved. And we're going to continue our meetings. Now, whether it bears any fruit or not, remains to be seen.
We're in the planning stages of an event, possibly on 9/11 or around that date. And I think they wanted to meet with Mr. Wilmore, not to let the cat out of the bag, to see if there would be an opportunity for them to have an event focused on students and student age.
Sure. We
Because
talked about,
those are the people that are passionate about doing volunteer work, you know?
yeah, we talked about the fire class also, and of course the EMS class. We discussed it several times, but it's never come to fruition. We're fine with it. We'll make it happen if somebody just brings it.
Someone will just take the lead on
And
it.
if somebody will take the lead and get us an instructor.
That happened at one point, correct me if I'm wrong.
It was before my time, yes. We had a grant counter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to Paul about that. I talked to you about it and talked to Paul about it. And Paul said he was gonna sit down with me. There was more to it than that. And I'm never heard anything else, but
It's not,
that needs,
it's
mean-
not that hard.
well, it was done before, so it could be done. And I think it would help
We had
everybody,
guys that
the
crazy.
kids and the agencies.
It's just getting the materials, getting the instructor. It's not that hard to do.
Well, I think we should make that a priority for one.
And sign
Whatever
these
we gotta
kids
do
up
to
for
do
stuff.
that.
I mean, we, at the Baywood meeting, they sent around a sign-up sheet. If you were there, you were not gonna leave without signing up for something. Whether it was just to change the lights and wash the trucks.
Just from
So
what I've
Becky,
seen,
I'm sorry, Randy, go ahead.
just from what I've seen, our younger, children that are that come with their parents, be in the firehouse, they love being there. They help wash trucks, wash hose, sweep floors, carry out the trash. And I think that is something that the kids need to be interested in instead of sitting on the phone and doing this all day.
Agreed.
The problem is one of the things is funding. I mean, boils down to that. And the way everything is trickled down, where like you said, a lot of us older ones like me, I'm a charter member. And my granddad owned the property that building sits on.
Well, we're in a quandary. The county we don't have any money. I mean, we're broke, and everybody's here is asking for more money, and more money can solve a little bit of the problem. Right now we have a modified system with volunteers who need payment to continue to volunteer, and that makes them a paid employee. And we don't want to go down the route of having county-owned buildings and county-owned apparatuses. We want to rely on our volunteer system as long as we can. And if that means that we need to up the ante a little bit, it's 1,500% more now than it was 5 years ago.
And we're thankful for every penny of that.
Yeah.
We really are.
But it needs to be more.
But when you look at the increase of, if you look at what is set aside for all departments, divide that by 13. Take that total number, divide that by 13. That will show you roughly what each department's gonna get.
Really, it doesn't.
Huh?
Because it's based on call volume, is it not?
Yeah.
But yes, I'm
It
saying,
really,
give you a general idea.
Mhm.
But we tried to balance that by saying any call that you make, you get at the same rate. And apparently that wasn't the best thing for us to do.
Maybe it's a review the calculation.
Yeah, because I know call volume plays a lot into it, but Mount Rogers in Troutdale probably are a couple of the ones that run the fewest calls. But you still have to have the same equipment as who runs the most calls, and that's the biggest cost. I mean, I know labor cost is a big thing, but having all the equipment, that's a big cost. And you've got to have people run the calls, whether you run one call a month or 100. So maybe that's a good thing. Review the calculation on that too, and see how we
I
can
think
help.
where we are right now is if you don't mind going back and seeing what, I know that we've got to raise money just to break even right now, but look at what increase in call volume, call costs would look like for our next meeting.
Yeah.
It's like Ralph said, we're grateful for everything that we get from the county. I think it was in the PowerPoint that, yeah, y'all give us money, we can purchase trucks with, which we own and the county doesn't. At the same time, I think it takes a huge burden off of y'all's back and puts it on ours because we have to fully equip it with everything that has to go on it. And it's my understanding, like, I know we're doing grants and it's never been told to any agency as far as the squads that's bought. Is the county gonna own them squads or is the agency gonna own them squads?
The county has no interest at this point in owning any squad. And
which will take some of the burden off of y'all as far as maintenance and stocking. I mean, that's thousands of dollars just to get one truck stocked with everything it needs.
yeah, I hear you. And you got to come to the budget meetings every year and not let this fester. I mean, we want the feedback from everybody. It's not like we're sitting here almighty going to say where every dollar's going to go, even though we have to.
My personal opinions, everybody's got their own opinion, but there's reasons why this hasn't been brought up in the past. But
Well, let's not turn it into a gossip
I
session.
foresee in the future, like I say, every agency will be set,
Every agency will be sitting in here.
just like they are now. Most of your agencies.
And I think they should. This is, and this is, we're not supposed to be talking with our rules and procedures like this. We just allowed it to happen because we want the feedback from you guys. Maybe next year, whoever's sitting here can give a budget session to the agency to talk about it.
Yeah, I think put that for next year.
I just got one sentence. Us as an EMS commission have said that we want to be more involved when it comes to the budget. For the EMS commission wants to be more involved, and that's all your department heads.
Well, let's get more involved before everybody gets so pissed that
Yes,
it
exactly.
becomes a scene throughout the whole county, because it can be a reasonable discussion. And whether it's a fire tax, we've got to charge our citizens more dollars to do this. And that is,
And you can ask every one of these agencies, I'm not even looking at them, I'm looking straight at you.
yep.
Every one of them want to be involved from this point forward when it comes to time to budget.
Well, and I tell you, everybody around here would want feedback from you guys throughout the year, not just at the end of budget season. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely.
I want to thank all of y'all for coming and appreciate your comments. Thanks for being open with us. We're going to move on. Nikki? Oh, now we're just.
Yes, we are discussions, suggestions, comments.
Motion to make.
Okay, regarding the school items, would like to tender a motion to approve the total school budget of $30,441,000. $79.45, with the county contribution of $8,264,002.38, which is required local effort and debt service.
Yeah, I think Reggie left his phone.
This require a roll call vote?
Mr. Chairman, this is the RLE, right?
That's required by the
Required local effort.
Plus debt service.
Plus debt service, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Anderson? Aye. Mr. Ash?
Aye.
Mr. Cornett?
Aye.
Ms. Tomlinson?
Aye.
I'm also aye. This time I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.